Welcome back to Farcaster Agentic Bootcamp. I'm Limone Dotit from the Urban and Builders Garden team, and we're the host for this Agentic Bootcamp to build, of course, agents on Farcaster. This bootcamp is sponsored and supported by Farcaster, Neinar, and the Privy team. Super excited to have them backing us. And it's also part of a broader program. As you know, we're running an online hackathon ending next Sunday, so we still have around 10 days. Today's session is going to be hosted by Vito from the Ethereum Foundation Decentralized AI team, and it's going to be about agents, identity, and reputation, specifically around AT04, a new standard that the Ethereum Foundation drafted and published some months ago, and then a lot of builders picked it up very quickly, and it's one of the, let's say, core building blocks when it comes to building on-chain agents. So without further ado, Vito, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Lemon. Yes, I think more than just like 2004, I wanted to have a chat, of course, about 2004, but also like why AI and Ethereum work. That's why I have the very long name for this presentation, that is AI, reputation, identity, and also what it means for Ethereum and humans. Now, I usually, when I start this presentation, I ask how many people already are familiar with 2004. I will assume some of you already started looking into that. Some of you know nothing. Some of you may be experts. But let's get started. So you probably noticed that, but at a certain point last year, more towards December, we went from, okay, AI is cool, is doing a few things, is speeding up my workflow, is writing code that I don't necessarily have to write, but I still have to check. And then around December, I think when Cloud Code came out, everyone was like, whoa, okay, AI is actually super powerful. It is replacing probably 30% of the developers out there. There's still a good 70% of developers that are actually very good, and they're not going to be replaced right now from AI. But oh my God, I can actually now build 10 times faster. Now, this is not only kind of changed the way we approach code. I know that many of you are developers, but it also changed the way financial institutions approach portfolio management. It changed the way lots of companies handle their support. That was already the case, but now 99% is handled by AI. So what we started thinking as the DAI team, and taking a step back, the DAI team works on mainly three things. It's a pretty much new team. It started around August last year. It's three guys. It's fully Italian, fun enough. That's going to change kind of soon. But we work on three things. One is AI and privacy, AI security, and AI economy and commerce in general. So we started to think, okay, how does this changes the way economies work? How does this change how people interact with agents when it comes to procurement, when it comes to getting stuff done, not only code, of course, and also how, as the Ethereum Foundation, we want to approach this. So as I was saying, there is these two technologies converging, and one is AI on one hand. There is a new kind of economic participant, and on the other end, you have Ethereum, this coordination layer. So we started wondering, okay, how can Ethereum help these? And back in 2024, I think Davide was kind of a visionary at that time, because he released this paper that is called the Internet of Agents. No one knew about Cloud Code. No one knew about of course, Opus 4.6, 4.5. And it was okay, what happens when agents become good enough to actually become economy participants in economy, purchase, sell, create things on their own? So he wrote that, and together with it, he started theorizing this standard, which is actually a full protocol, if you wish, which is 8004. Now, we're going to get back to 8004 in a few seconds, but just so you can start thinking about that, essentially 8004 solves three main issues. One is the discoverability of these agents and agentic services. So right now, if you think about it, all of these services, just talking about agents, they're very scattered around the internet. You really have three ways to find the right agent / LLM that you want to use. One is the classic, I go on Google and search AI that does graphic design, AI that does my tax returns every year, AI that does XYZ. The other one is going on an LLM agent, right? You go on ChatGPT and you ask, what's the best AI to do tax returns? What's the best AI to do designs? And the third way is asking your friends, right? You have Lemon here. You're like, hey, Lemon, what's the best AI tool to do XYZ? And he will tell you all of them because he knows all of that. That's very scattered and it's not very optimized, especially if you think about an economy. So you want a place where you can register all of these agents, which is going back to a conversation that I was having today with Limone, because it was like, hey, let's talk about Farcaster. This is Farco. And I was like, yeah, okay. How can we talk about it? And if you think about identities on Farcaster, that's kind of what Farcaster already offers, right? You have these identities, profiles, you have social graphs, and you have all of them together under like a wrapper that you can then query to find what you're looking for. So this is the identity registry, and then there is another registry that is the reputation registry. So once you've found the tools /LLM /agentic services that can help you get whatever you need to get done, then you also need to understand, okay, what's the best, like between all of these tools, which one is the best one? Again, you have the same old ways. You try it, it doesn't work. You try something else. You ask your friend that already tried it. But most of the times, A, is time consuming. But when you start working on things that is not just like create a logo or tell me what I should eat this evening, but you start working with things like, hey, move like hundreds of thousands of dollars from my portfolio to this high-yield kind of program, then it also can become expensive, because if the agent or agentic service doesn't work well, then you might be losing money. So the reputation registry on 1004 kind of solves that. You can see it as Yelp in a way. That's how you usually describe it, but it's very much more complete than that. If you're familiar with SEO, it's kind of similar on how Google kind of ranks pages on the search engine results page. So there is, yes, is the quality of the content good, but it's also, is the latency good? Is the overall uptime good? Like, is a lot of data points, then you can aggregate to decide which one is the best service for your use case. And then there is the third registry, which is going to go live at the end of the month. I feel like if anyone here heard any of the presentations that I did on the past, I always say the validation registry is going to be live at the end of the month. This time is true. We actually had to fix a bunch of issues with the TE's providers. But essentially allows for very high stake operations, such as moving hundreds of thousands of dollars on chain or off chain, also to validate the operations of the agents. To give you an example, think when you're writing on ChatGPT, right? You think you're writing on to, I don't know, GPT 4.5. But you really have no way to verify that. The only thing that you can do is trust the UI there. Now, as you're probably familiar with Ethereum, we don't really like trusting UIs. We like to work in trustless assumptions. So how do we verify that the AI agent or agentic service is actually executing the way it advertises? How do we verify it's running that model? How do we verify it's running on these GPUs? So that's what the validation registry is for. So you can replicate the functioning of the LLM or service and verify that the result of that job, of that inference, is actually correct based on those settings. So moving forward, before going back to 8004, which is, we could talk about that for ages, why Ethereum matters in all of these is because, as I was saying, we want to work in a trustless assumption, right? We don't want to trust a big company. We don't want to trust someone telling us that XYZ thing is done that way. We want to make sure that it's done that way. And Ethereum is the most neutral layer to do that. And that's why it was built. That's why it's run by thousands of nodes worldwide. And that's how the Ethereum Foundation thinks about AI. So moving forward, agents are a little bit different than the humans, of course. And if you've seen, I don't like interviews with Steinberg, that is the guy behind OpenClaw, one of his big theses, which I totally agree with, is that UIs will become less and less important the more AI will get better, because agents, if you're just talking about agents, they don't use UIs, right? They don't click on buttons. They call APIs. They write code on the fly, but also because these UIs moving forward can become fully tailored to the user. right? So they know what you need to do, and they will spin up UIs on the fly to make you do whatever you have to do. Or even better, you just don't need a UI, you just talk to the AI. And of course, agents cannot do like a lot of things that we do, like they can use passwords securely. Lemon, for example, developed CWA to solve this issue, right? If you try to give a private key to your agent, that's a big problem, because with some prompt injection, I can also share a bunch of data regarding prompt injection, but it's a dramatic situation. You end up like getting your private keys leaked, for example. They cannot open bank accounts. Like try going to any bank as an agent and be like, hey, I want to open a bank account. They cannot. They need KYC. They need lots of like different documents that agents do not have. They cannot wait days for settlement because they work at light speed, or at least at inference speed. They cannot rely on courts or legal contracts. They cannot build reputation the way we talked about. They cannot ask their friend, hey, what is the best tool to do X, Y, Z? So we need to think about all these things when it comes to the agentic economy and how we can set up a set of tools and infrastructures that can actually help agents perform the actions that we need them to perform, to then all kind of like enjoy an economy of abundance. That's how it's called, where everything can be done much quicker and everyone has more unlimited possibilities when it comes to what they can do and they cannot do. So the main questions here that we tried to ask ourselves is, okay, in the current economy that we have, who can participate? How are we establishing trust? And going back to what we were saying with the 1004, that's what we're trying to solve. How value flows, so how do we exchange values between the parties? And can we improve that? Can we make the playing field better in a way that doesn't only relies on like big infrastructure or financial or institutions, because they tend to be very slow, understandably, because they need to work with policies and laws. Everyone does, but they need to shape these policies and laws to then implement whatever they need to implement. So when we talk about Ethereum, then we can talk about a layer that, as I was saying, is impartial, is trustless, is provable. You can prove every action, and is open to everyone. So a layer where everyone can build, and if we can then move these institutions on Ethereum, then everyone can build for these institutions. Example that we will touch on later on is reputation. As I was saying, one thing that 8004 is solving, that's getting adopted by institutions, because reputation is not something that an individual company can solve. Right? If you think about Google, they also have problems when it comes to Google business. You have fake reviews. You have mostly fake reviews. The same for Yelp. Reputation is something that needs to be solved as a community and ecosystem and as a set of different like data providers. So when we think of Ethereum, we can really think of Ethereum for AI. We can really think of Ethereum for humans. So Ethereum that gives the possibility to everyone to actually contribute to this AI economy and further developments of this. Now, quick diverging point here. You also need to keep in mind that when we work as the Ethereum Foundation, we want to work following the crops kind of like principles. This is very important. If you read the recent mandate, this is one of the key point of the new mandate. Crops means censorship resistant. It means open source. It means privacy educated / privacy protecting, and of course secure. We want to make sure all of this is true. Now, if you think about AI today, is almost none of these things, right? There is 2 big labs, 3 big labs that are holding the whole power of AI inferences, and censorship resistant, we're not even talking about that. We don't know, / it's happening like every day. They're totally not open source, absolutely not free, actually very expensive. Privacy is not even on the table. You're sending everything in plain text to these labs. And security, to be honest, they're doing an amazing job when it comes to security, especially Anthropic. They're working hard on that. Mythos is coming soon, and that's going to change a bunch of things. So we can actually skip that. I already touched on these. Is like a couple of examples of things that are getting built on Ethereum that kind of are relevant to AI agents and agentic economies, like finance, so agents that move money, identity, so agents that can verify their identity, governance, so agents that deal with governance and maybe automated DAOs and so on and so forth, and of course AI agent infrastructure. Now, when we think about AI agent infrastructure, I would like you to think that every node is a computer, every node has computation power, every node can run a part of an inference, which is one of the researches that we're doing right now. Think about decentralized inferences. What if instead of using a data center, we used the nodes to run these inferences? That could be super interesting, something that still unsolved. If you have some extra time, try to solve it. There is a bunch of money on the table for that. Now, the same things that we talked about before when it comes to crops are also needed for agents. So identity, as we were saying, agents need an identity. We need to be able to pinpoint an agent and potentially, based on that identity, give them access to certain services. We need reputation, because as we were saying, think Visa implementing AI agents, they need a way to understand if an agent should or should not use their services. Think about payments. They need to transact at lightning speed. Think about enforceable agreements. We need to make sure that agents respect certain policies. They are not fully free to do whatever they want. But also think about a neutral infrastructure where these agents run, so that all the data, all the computation power, all the value they need to use, create, or consume is not held by a couple of big companies, which in this case might be worse than in the past, because the power of AI, we all seen that is much bigger than like a search engine. Now, I'm going to jump on this. I already touched on that. Lemon, maybe I can share these slides later on. There is like a couple of notes here, a couple of like cool sentences that we like to say when it comes to Ethereum and AI agents. And so, this is also a presentation that we brought to the teacher group of Stanford last month. So some of these things are also interesting to them because they're not familiar with AI and Ethereum. Sorry, with Ethereum. They're much more familiar with AI than Ethereum. So again, Ethereum is that neutral layer. And so there is like literally two things that we've been focusing on. One is decentralized coordination for AI agents, and the other one is building AI models and AI computation and AI infrastructure that embodies these values of censorship resistant, open source, secure, privacy concerned. Now, this is kind of like where our current focus is on. So on one hand is AI coordination, as we were saying, with 1004, X42. We're working very closely with the Coinbase team. The creator of X42 is also one of the co-authors of 8004. And in general, like 8004 L2 infra. We talk about watchtowers. We'll talk about CIWA, of course. We'll talk about how many chains are right now supporting 8004, which, spoiler, is all of them. We're deploying on Tempo today as well. And then on the other end, we have privacy and security. So when it comes to TEs, if you're not familiar with TEs, it's trusted execution environment. We would enable inferences in real time that are tamper-proof, so no one will be able to see the content of these inferences, which is great because at that point, no one sees what you're telling the AI. ZK-LLM credits, so how do we enable API subscriptions that are fully anonymous while retaining the possibility for the provider, such as OpenRouter, to potentially rate limit or close accounts. And of course, Ethereum protocol agents. So how do we think about agents that potentially completely substitute wallets and help people to perform actions on chain without being super familiar or without having to spend like 24/7 looking at their wallet to optimize yield, or making sure that they're not investing in scam tokens, and so on and so forth. So overall, improving privacy, UX, and action. So we go back to 8004. 8004 was theorized back in August 2025. It went on testnet in September 2025. And then it's been a big collaborative work between the 8004 team, MetaMask team, with Marco De Rossi, which is the AI lead at MetaMask, Eric Rakpo, head of engineering at Coinbase Developer Platform, and Jordan Ellis, that is the research and development lead for agentic economies at Google. So they all got together, created 8004 in 2025, and then September testnet, and then in January we finally went to mainnet with 2 registries of the free, identity reputation. Again, validation will be available at the end of the month. Now, the kind of like usage skyrocketed right away. We went from 0 to 100,000 agents registered in the first 3 months. And here I'm already filtering out all the agents that are just like fresh, to be honest. So people that have just registered their agents on chain because they wanted a cool ID. So these are 100K effective agents with over 20K monthly active agents, where active is measured based on the number of actions they're doing on chain and off chain if they expose it, of course. Down there at the bottom, you can see a small graph of how 8004 works. Let me see if I can actually zoom it in. Yes, I can. Fantastic. This comes from a blog post that we wrote on the Ethereum Foundation AI blog. I will link that at the end of the presentation. But again, if you're not familiar, how it works is that you register an identity on chain, and then this identity exposes endpoints. Which an endpoint, it can be everything. It can be a API endpoint, it can be an MCP, it can be an A2A server, that is agent to agent, is a thing created by Google. It can also be a GoDaddy DNS, because we're working with GoDaddy now, that is a DNS provider, domain server, domains provider as well. It can be literally anything, ENS, it can be an email, it can be a website, it can be literally anything. And then there is a reputation registry. So whenever a job is completed, then you can leave a feedback to, well, actually take a step back, two possibilities, or is a user-driven / agent-driven feedback, where you complete a job and you leave a feedback to that agent saying, the job was good, the job was bad, and give it a score. Or it can also be given by this concept of watchtowers. Now, you've seen watchtowers mentioned before. Watchtowers are nothing more than, imagine a cron job. So a job that runs every X amount of time. And what it does, it pings the agent and checks that the agent is up. It checks the latency. It checks that the return values of the agent are the same declared in the registration file. If you search on Google 8004, you'll see the first link is literally the spec, and you can look at it, and you will see there is a registration file. It's very easy to read. And the registration file says what the agent should return. So all of these things are measured and then saved in the reputation registry to create this aggregated score for that agent. And then, of course, there is this validation check from the validation registry. And this creates this virtuous cycle where you improve the reputation of your agent is discovered more, is used more. It's just like a business, right? You open a pizzeria, and then everyone goes there, they leave a feedback, you get lots of feedback on Glovo or Just Eat or whatever. People are like, oh, look at this place, they have thousands of feedback, and it's great feedback. I'm going to order there. And it goes on and on. Now, before going into that, I want to stop just a second on the reputation, because if you're thinking about building on the agentic economy, reputation is the best place to be. Because as I was saying, this is something that cannot be solved by an individual company. So it's not a situation where if Google comes and they create a reputation registry for agents, they're going to take over the whole market. That's not possible. Because to create a reputation that is complete enough, you need too many data points. And these data points need to come necessarily from different providers. To give you a couple of examples, I already talked about user-driven feedback. I talked about watchtower-driven feedback. But think about KYA, that is Know Your Agent. Now, for that to happen, you need a KYC provider. That KYC is the owner of the agent, and then puts on the reputation registry a data point saying, hey, this agent owner is known. So we know if something goes wrong, who to knock to, right? So reputation is something that is not fully solved yet, but is also the place where we've seen most of the enterprise adoption from Web 2 world. I think one big goal for us AI team when we created 8004 was, okay, let's go out of the Web3 bubble. Let's stop only targeting Web3 protocols. We only work in our echo chamber. Let's go to the enterprise customers. Let's go to Web2 customers that have big volumes, and let's solve a problem to them. Reputation is where we are right now, and everyone is asking about it, from Visa to GoDaddy to another number of companies that I cannot mention right now, but in the next couple of months, you will see them coming on 8004. Moving forward, X402 is another component of 8004, or 8004 is a component of X402. It depends how you see it, but essentially they work hand in hand. There is a native implementation now that will go out as soon as I finish writing the smart contracts. So my bad, it's a little bit slow. But essentially it allows agents to pay each other. Of course, you're probably familiar with with X402, and connect the payment to the reputation data point. So whenever a payment is done, you take the transaction hash, you wrap it inside the reputation payload, you send everything on chain, and now you know why that score is given, why that feedback is given. Something that you cannot do, by the way, on Google businesses, right? Like whenever you leave a review, you just leave the review, who knows where that review comes from. Which is interesting because I didn't know, but today in Italy, at least, the antitrust just released a new law that all new reviews on Google Business need to be baked by a receipt. So now to insert a review on Google Business, you need to take a picture of your receipt at that place, and only that case it can be accepted. So I'm kind of trying to follow the same pattern here. It's very new. It's a news that came out 1 hour ago, right before this presentation. So going back to what we're doing, we're working on all of these. So local AIs, and what I think everyone should be focusing on if you want to work at the intersection between blockchain and AI is anything that is related to local AI models, making them more powerful, maybe fine-tuning them to a small set of actions so they don't become huge. Maybe try and look into turbo quantization, I think it's called. That is something that Google released last week to reduce the amount of memory needed. Ethereum UX assistants, Farcaster UX assistants as well. AI security auditors, protocol research agents, governance, decentralized AI training. This is where most of the money are, by the way. Decentralized training and decentralized inferences are massive. Yeah, probably. I do agree. And then I will look at all the questions later. But so a couple of concrete projects, and then I will share my screen and look at these projects with you guys. I know that we wanted to keep the presentation around 30 minutes so we can have a discussion. So 4 minutes left. Is AI-powered protocol security, definitely one. Another one is reputation watchtowers. We will look at AG0. ZKLM credits, that is the thing we were talking about to enable AI subscriptions, private AI subscriptions. ZKML research, or you know what is ZKML, otherwise I won't get into that because there is a lot of math involved, and in general, like university research partnerships. When it comes specifically to Farcaster, I think, again, we go back to reputation, right? You have these social graphs, you have the connections to this AI agent, you have how long this agent has been around. These are all important reputation points that can be wrapped inside the reputation registry and then used to enable certain things. Whether it is access to a certain service, whether it is certain different thresholds when it comes to spending or whatnot. This is a live example that I will just jump, but the Ethereum Foundation is already using social graphs, actually, and dependency graphs to handle the funds, so the grants that we use. So we have an AI engine that essentially scrapes all the requests for funds, and based on the reputation, actually, of the requester, then we attribute the funds. Of course, there is a human in the loop that reviews everything. Kudos to them, because we receive so many funds requests. What is next? Validation registry, as I said. Expanded private payments infrastructure, which goes back to ZKML and ZK credits. Automated negotiation, we have a paper that we just released that is here in this presentation that is called Profit is the Red Team. More integrations with the AI frameworks and enterprise tools. And then, of course, we're working with a bunch of universities, including DeepMind. Now, that is not a university, but is one of the biggest labs to move forward with AI commerce. Resources, these ones. Now, let me stop sharing my screen. I will go quickly through the resources, because if you want to build on 8004, you definitely need to know them. Awesome. So when it comes to resources, I think the most important one is definitely the 8004.org website. Here you can see again the entire spiel that I gave you today, but you also have cool things like Learn, which kind of answers all the frequently asked questions related to 8004, Build, that as of course all the chains that are currently available, there are a couple missing now, as well as no-code solutions like 8004 Scan that I will show you in a few seconds, SDKs and libraries that you can use to build. I would say the most complete right now is Agent Zero, is also built by one of the co-authors, so that's probably why. Demos that you can clone to just start your 8004 scanner or agent, and then more low-level things like the subgraphs and the smart contracts if you want to build native implementations, as well as, of course, the team context. We also have this needs to be updated, but the community section where you can see the events that we host. We usually have one event every 1 or 2 months where we just showcase all the projects that the community is building. Last one was last month, where we had people from DeepMind talking, Coinbase, of course, Henry Kreppel also gave a presentation. And of course, there is the team section here where you can see all the people working on that. And last one is 8004 Scan, which I would say is the most mature scanner right now. This is unrelated to the Ethereum Foundation. It's built by the folks at Altlayer. And here you can see actual agents that are currently like working, their reputation as well. Like if you go under leaderboard, you can see their score and all the reputation associated with them. So if you go under feedback, for example, this one has 579 feedback already, and examples of their metadata. Like I was saying before, what they do, the different endpoints, so how you can interact with it, and what trust is supported, which is related to the validation registry. Other than that, I think for the more researcher ones, if not nerdy ones, these we have ai.ethereum.org, which kind of contains all the papers and research pieces that we have. One of which, the most recent one, we just released it last week, is this paper written by Marcello and Davide, that are the other 2 teammates of mine, which essentially analyzes how AI agents behave in economic transaction situations where you try to attack the kind of one of the two agents. Read through it, is very interesting. The findings are also very interesting, which kind of highlight the need for better security when it comes to agents. And then last one is more about PIC, which is another team of the Ethereum Foundation that is, what was the link? PIC.dev. We wanted to act cool. They don't have the Ethereum Foundation domain, but this is essentially another team of the Ethereum Foundation that specifically works on privacy, security, and now quantum resistance, which is another component. So this was pretty much it. I think, yeah, if you have questions, please let me know. Otherwise, we can just have a chat about agents and use cases.
Thank you so much, Vito. Thank you so much. Guys, if you have any question, please raise your hand, or you can also send them in the chat. Any ideas or comments? I think that everything that Vito shared is very complementary with respect to what we've seen so far on Farcaster. And funny enough, I don't think that there's much overlap between 804 and Farcaster right now. I didn't see any implemented use case, but I think they're interesting because you can augment or enrich the reputation of an agent on Farcaster using this on-chain registry for both identity, reputation, feedback, and such. So I think it might be a nice opportunity for the hackathon if anybody is up for the challenge. Yes, Santi, go on.
Hello, Vito. Thank you for the explanation. Something I want to understand, and I'm going to put like in a very simple words, is like the 8004 is like a certificate for the agent to get more like these reviews, right? Because I can have an agent that I do it another place, but I can put that layer that is the 8004 to get that reputation, so my agent, I don't know, can do another things. That's correct?
Correct. Yes. It's both way around, I would say. In your case, Farcaster can be an augmentation layer for the agent on 8004, and the other way around, absolutely, 8004 can be an augmentation layer for the profile of that agent. Again, if you look at the specs, we made them intentionally very open. So you have a services field, and nothing prevents you from putting like the URL or Farcaster ID of that agent in the services field, so that whenever someone wants to interact with that agent, they can also see the Farcaster profile potentially. So yeah, to answer your question, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other comment or ideas?
What's happened if the certificate fail? Like, okay, this agent doesn't have a good reputation. What is going to do the 8004 to that agent?
8004 doesn't do natively anything to that agent. It's on the implementer, so whoever implements 8004 to do something with that. But to give you like a couple of examples, if you're Visa, for example, right, you don't want to give access to agents that have a scarce reputation to use your systems. Or again, because reputation is such a vast field, right? Again, it's not just like good job or bad job, but it's also maybe, is the owner of this agent KYC'd? That also allows them to be policy compliant, right? So I only want to give access to my services to the agents that have the owner KYC'd. Or another use case that was super interesting that I've seen is with a big Web3 company, they're one of the biggest, and their legal team, so they're implementing 8004. Actually, they weren't implementing 8004 originally. They wanted to implement AI agents, but they had a big blocker. The legal team was telling them that even agents need to sign terms of services, right? Because otherwise, if you don't sign terms of services, then you cannot use their product. Which is interesting because at that point with 8004, they can just prompt the agent to sign terms of services, save that within the reputation registry, and then give access to the agent only if they have this data field on the reputation registry, these agents sign terms of services. It's a brand new agent built by brand new dev. How does it build reputation? That's a great question. So right now is easy. Like the easy answer is right now is early enough that there aren't many good agents. So if your agent is good, is automatically going to be found because it's in this like 8004, you've seen that, right? All the agents registered are there. All the agents that are working on 8004 use the identity registry. So if your agent does something novel, like, I don't know, that's tax returns. So if an agent looks for an agent that does tax returns, they will find your agent and they will use it. I think, and then they will leave a feedback and that will build reputation and so on and so forth. Of course, there is the old school way of like doing marketing for your agent as well. But I think right now, it's just a matter of getting a good agent on 8004, getting that used, getting that found, and naturally will kind of like obtain a bunch of reputation. In a 6 months period, that might be completely different though, in which case then is the same thing as a standard market, right? Differentiate, build something that does things better than others, do marketing, get people to test it, and yeah, just build a good product. Surfacing and distribution. And so it's very easy. That's a great question. You have two ways, or you use the SDK, which might not be your case because the SDK is more for when you want to build this one. Is when you want to build natively with 8004. But if you don't want to, you can just, let me see if I can log in here. Oh. Let me see. Oh, fantastic. It's not working. But essentially here, if you log in, can I just create? No, I need to connect my wallet and that will take too much. But once you log in, you can just click on create your agent here and they have a guided setup. So you just need to add the name of your agent. You just need to add the the endpoints of your agent, the skills. Like if you're registering yourself on a professional network, same exact thing. And then you click register, you pay the fees. I think these are paid for on Base, they're paid for on Celo and a couple of others. And then you just click register, and that's going to be available on 1004. Now, even if you have to decide the chain, the cool thing is that it's kind of like multi-chain agnostic, because these 8004 scan or all the other scanners already built an abstraction layer on top of it that is being used by all the agents, where if you look for XYZ agent, then it will aggregate the agents across all the different chains. Transparently, there is only one blocker right now. There's not really a blocker, it's just a DevX annoyance where sometimes the agent is registered on, I don't know, Celo, but it accepts payment on Base. So you still need to deal with this like cross-chain kind of like annoyance, but I would say most of them are accepting payments on Base just because X402 is very much pushed on Base. So once you can support that, you're good to go. Yeah, like a LinkedIn for agents. There is a bunch of people that are describing 8004 as a LinkedIn of agents. And yeah, it's a perfect analogy. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's actually discouraged to register your agent across all different chains. So there is nothing, because you want to use the kind of like aggregators to pull the agents from all the different chains. I do agree, though, it would be a great like data signal on the reputation registry if the agent accepts payments on the same chain they're registered on. I just think it's wild that some agents don't do that. Well, to be honest, it shouldn't be like a bonus point if your agent accepts payment on the same chain they're registered on. There should be like a malus point if your agent doesn't accept payments on the chain they're registered on, because you're doing things wrong. And sorry,
Awesome.
just to say one thing. Another misconception of 8004 that I usually touch as the first thing, but I forgot this time, is that 8004 is only for agents. That's not true. I also wrote this article that is you're reading 8004 wrong, because economy is made by different actors, right? You have people purchasing, you have people producing, but you also have the services producing the value. And these services producing the value on 8004 and in the agentic economy are APIs, literally, are MCP servers. So if you have, I don't know, like a data API, think Redstone, right? They do oracles and price feeds. They have registered on 8004. They don't have an agent. They just have an API wrapped around X402, so you can pay per use, where you just give agents the price feeds for that moment. So not everything registered on 8004 needs to be an agent. If you have a cool API that would allow agents to do something they cannot do natively, that's a perfect use case for 8004.
Good point. I forgot about it, but it's always good to remember. I remember also when I started bidding with 804 that I wasn't considering it, but it's a very interesting concept.
Yeah. And then we go back, I mean, to the example that I always make, right? Lemon is the universal MCP, where instead of having like one MCP for each kind of like capability of your agent, you end up with only one MCP that reads from the 8004 registry, and your agent asks that MCP, I need to buy a pizza. Okay, awesome. Then that MCP looks through the 8004 registry. It runs all the pizza providers by reputation and just gives the agent the best pizza provider for that time and price and whatnot. So that also changes the way we build agents.
Yeah, totally. Is there any comments or questions for Vito? Otherwise, of course, you can reach him out on any social. He's a real ex-influencer. I'm on Farcaster, so I'm the small guy.
Riches are in the niches. What's the saying?
Yeah, Vito is on Farcaster.
I am a Farcaster, very much not active though. I'm trying to limit my social media consumption as much as possible.
On this cast, I mentioned him, so you can find his profile. All right, so let's call it. Thank you again, Vito, for joining us today. We will share the recording of these later today or tomorrow. I'll make sure to get the slides from Vito and any useful links, as always. And yeah, that's it. See you all tomorrow for the last session of the bootcamp. And so after that, it's really time to ship something. And of course, we will be in touch throughout the next week to help you all actually delivering something in production.
Awesome.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you, everyone.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.